Ich habe das Vergnügen, den ersten Vortrag des heutigen Nachmittags anzusagen. Wir haben es ja vorhin schon gehört, und zwar ist das ein Vortrag von Lidija Podlesnik Tomašikova. Nur zum Lebenslauf das kürzeste, alles Nähere dann im Programmheft. Der Link ist zum PDF ist im Chat. Sie hat Musikpädagogik und Musikwissenschaft studiert und arbeitet seit 2015 als Bibliothekarin an der Nationalen Universitätsbibliothek in Ljubljana. Ja, und ihr Vortrag geht über den sogenannten Laibacher Deutschen und was es mit diesem Tanz und auch mit den Quellen ja, auf sich hat. Das werden wir jetzt im Vortrag hören. Wie gesagt, wir haben jetzt den Vortrag als Video, aber Lidija ist natürlich live dabei. Herzlich willkommen auch hier nochmal. Und für Fragen steht sie uns dann natürlich selbstverständlich zur Verfügung. Dann, Roy, gebe ich dir das Wort, dass du den Vortrag einschalten kannst.
Laibacher Deutsche. The Deutsche is an enigma in dance history. The term is used to refer to a social dance in triple time, often found in the towns of southern Germany and the Habsburg lands in the second half of the 18th century. The expression can therefore also be applied to the Laibacher Deutsche. My presentation is to present the music of Laibacher Deutsche, preserved in the music collection of the National and University Library in Ljubljana. Among the dance forms, often grouped under the umbrella term German dance, such as Deutsche, Steirisch, Strasburger, etc., there was significant flexibility and variability in music. In the beginning of the 19th century, Ljubljana was a provincial city of the Duchy of Carniola in the Austrian Empire. However, with the Congress of the Holy Alliance in 1821, it suddenly became the center of Europe. From January to May, the Emperor Francis I of Austria, the Russian Tsar Alexander I, Ferdinand I, the King of the Sicilies, and Francis IV, Duke of Modena, had several meetings on the Congress of Ljubljana. The coordinator of the Congress was the Prince of Metternich, who is attested to have danced the Polonaise at the gala reception in the Redoute Hall in Ljubljana. Similar to the Vienna Congress in 1814, there was plenty of dancing, entertainment, and theater going at the Ljubljana Congress as well. In the picture, we see celebration in Ljubljana during the Congress. Below the castle is the Estates Theatre. This place is still called Congress Square in memory of this event. Below the castle is a new building, the Slovenian Philharmonic. The time of Ljubljana Congress, Italian opera was dominant musical genre. Kaspar Mašek, who conducted those operas at the Estates Theatre in Ljubljana, kept arranging popular Deutsche from Rossini's operas for opera intermissions for the next 2 years after the Congress of Ljubljana. We ask ourselves, why exactly the arrangements of Deutsche were made, and not, for instance, of quadrille and contradance? Why weren't operatic melodies arranged in the form of the fashionable Viennese waltz that emerged as a result of the Viennese Congress already 7 years before? After the end of the French Revolution and Napoleon's defeat, the Austrian authorities struggled to reinstate the former political order. The German national dance, the Deutsche, seemed to be the most appropriate means of reinforcing the political ideas of that time. The Deutsche experienced a revival in the same way as the newly restored political regime and in the mind of those who lived under the Austrian monarchical rule, it maintained a particularly enduring tradition. A music enthusiast and an active member of the Philharmonic Society in Ljubljana, Leopold Ledenik was most productive as a composer of Laibacher Deutsche. His first one was kept in transcript, and the next three in nicely designed lithographies, printed in Graz. This one is from 1827, 1828, and 1813. The most Laibacher Deutsche were written by a professional musician, Georg Michaeus, who composed his first piece of music, Marsch Militaire, exactly during the Congress of Ljubljana, when he was only 16. For the carnival season of 1825, he contributed a set of 6 Deutsche for the Ljubljana Redoute and set of 6 for City Shooting House in Ljubljana. Let us listen to the earliest Laibacher Deutsche by Georg Michaeus, performed by Nina Vogt on the piano. Georg Michaeus continued with Laibacher Deutsche in the next 2 seasons while studying in Vienna. In 1826, he had one published by an important Viennese publishing house, Capi und Compagnon, and dedicated it to the then mayor of Ljubljana, Janez Nepomuk Hradecki, who was a big supporter of the Ljubljana City Shooting House. They were performed publicly in the same year in the Estates Theatre during intermissions of the play. Besides the 2 above-mentioned composers, there were other amateur musicians in Ljubljana, members of either the nobility or the bourgeoisie, who wrote Laibacher Deutsche for individual seasons. From the advertisements and preserved copies of the Deutsche in Ljubljana between 1815 and 1836, approximately 60 are known to have existed. Consistent labeling of the Deutsche as a redoute and shooting house probably meant an expression of class belonging rather than denoting locations of ballrooms. Namely, the redoute hall was managed by the estates of Carniola, whereas the city shooting house was in the domain of the city. The Deutsche, written in Ljubljana before the Congress, were not titled as Laibacher. The preserved sheet music sources show that the consciousness of belonging to one city matured only after the Laibacher Congress. Numerous prints and transcripts of Grazer Deutsche, kept in the music collection of the National and University Library in Ljubljana, shows that influences that brought about writing the Deutsche in Ljubljana came from their neighboring Graz. Baron Louis Lazzarini, who later wrote Laibacher Deutsche, published a set of 6 Allemandes for the pianoforte. They were performed in 1819 at the gala ball in the Casino Hall in Graz. We must not be misled by the name, because in this case it is a French translation of the expression Deutscher Tanz. But the Deutsche weren't named just after cities. a musical local color played its role as well. Therefore, the chosen example of a Grazer Deutscher sounds à la Styrienne, in the Styrian manner. A distinct dance melody, supported by a typical papa accompaniment, is found in the trio. An 8-bar violin melody of the national dance Steirisch, recognizable by broken chords, characteristic harmony, and a steady rhythm in quavers, occurs in the trio of the Grazer Deutscher. In written out 4-bar cadence of Steirisch is even more distinctive. Lazzarini transformed it into the start of the second 8-bar melody, which ends with a repeat of the first 4 bars of the trio's melody. Now, let us listen to this local colored Grazer Deutscher by Luis Lazzarini. The dance variation of Steirisch for a set of 3 dancers as a popular social dance was taught by Franz von Schier, the dancing master of the Carniolan provincial estates, in his private dance school in Ljubljana in 1828. In the beginning of the 19th century, Steirisch as a country folk dance was widely spread on the territories of present-day Slovenia. Nowadays, it is placed among Slovenian folk dances. Let us listen to Steirisch again, now titled as Waltz for Piano, from the same year, 1819. The earliest Deutsche from the music collection of the National and University Library in Ljubljana are anonymous. We can recognize them by a larger number of dances collected in individual sets. The earliest example among them sounds classicistic and consists of a set of 12 Deutsche with trios. It has been preserved in an undated transcript and simply called Deutsche. Let us listen to the first Deutsche from this set. It is in 3/8 bar. The Deutsche was often performed at yearly carnival balls and also in Redut Hall below the Ljubljana Castle that we can see in the photo. Deutsche reflected the freedom of the Enlightenment with relaxed rules in ballrooms. Unlike other complex dances of the time, the Deutsche was easy to learn and didn't require training. Its simplicity made it less common in dance manuals. Now I will list chronologically 4 important and presumably the only written sources for the Deutsche. Firstly, Jean-Georges Noverre described the Deutsche in 1767 as an adorable natural folk dance that is performed outdoors by well-coordinated and skillful dance couples around a tree or a pillar in a common circle. So he emphasized its characteristic special figure, dance of couples along a common circle. Secondly, 5 years later, Karl Joseph von Filtenstein partly equated the Deutsche with the Swabian dance and placed it among national dances in his treatise Erweiterung der Kunst. We can learn from his description how the Deutsche was performed. The Deutsche needed no dance classes like minuet or contredance because its basic triple step was allowed to be executed with a flexible and loose knee. It was easy to synchronize the Deutsche step with the triple time music that Feltenstein compared to 3 blows with a blacksmith hammer. Spatial execution had no limitations and was left entirely to the dance couple. It was not led or otherwise regulated by a dance master. For their own safety on the dance floor, the couples only had to follow the order on the rounds, which means moving without jostling or overtaking that could lead to accidents. Thirdly, in the famous novel Die Leiden der jungen Werther by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, one can find some interesting details about the Deutsche. The author also described a sequence of dances at the dance party of a young bourgeois company in a dancing pavilion. They started with a group minuet, continued with counterdances combined with rounds of waltz, and concluded with a Deutsche that had a special significance for couples in love. Namely, they usually stayed together for this dance according to local tradition. While writing about Werther and Lotte's dance, Goethe gives a description of the Deutschers in 3 parts. We set off and at first delighted ourselves with the usual graceful motions of the arms. This is description of hand figure known as Strasburger that was probably executed in place but already in the formation of couples in a circle. Then the waltz commenced and the dancers whirled around each other in the giddy maze. Description of the waltz. The rotation of the couple was executed in the typical South German figure known as Schleifen that should always be combined with a sliding dance step. We took a few turns in the room to recover our breath. A description of the promenade. It was executed along a circle and was a part of the Deutsche. In the next slide, we can see practicing one of the hand figures known as Strasburger with my students of musicology some years ago. Let us listen to the example of the music for the first figure of Deutsche, Strasburger Walzer by Karl Handschuh. shortly. In 1796, the Slovenian book printer Franz Josef Jenko published in Celje, in present-day Slovenian Styria, a pocket-sized booklet entitled Vollkommene Tanzschule by Georg Link. The manual contains 12 assembled English counterdances with the dance notation and figures that are also printed on 17 copper plates. It reveals many interesting details about the dance practice and gives an insight into dance forms of that period. Link, who mentions in the introduction that he was Nover's pupil, combined counter-dance figures with other dances. In the English counter-dance number 10, he added the recognizable figures of the popular Deutsche. The Strasburger figure of intertwining hands about head that is known today as a characteristic figure of the folk dance Steirisch, and the promenade as a round of couples along the circle. The most interesting and instructive for us, however, is his English counter-dance number 11, where he joined in the form of a potpourri the minuet, Deutsche, and English counter-dance figures, except that instead of the usual promenade, he prescribed in the figure 4 the Deutsche Tour in Rond Walzen. Let us see counter-dance number 11 again in the links table 13. Figures first and second are minuet. Third and fourth, Deutscher figures. This is Strasburger and German round. And finished with counter-dance figure 5, 6, 7, 8, like counter-dance, with counter-dance. The dance manual printed in Celje offers a probable interpretation that Link used two characteristic elements of the commonly known Deutsche. The typical figure of intertwining hands called the Strasburger figure and the promenade of couples along the circle. He joined both under the name Deutsch, comprising 16 bars. However, he wrote them down as two consecutive figures. There are no notation of music in Link's manual, but the example of the English counter-dance number 11 shows that at the turn of the century, the triple-time music became related in melody, rhythm, and tempo. Conclusion. In the German-speaking regions, the Deutsche initially appeared as a folk dance and later evolved into a national dance embraced by bourgeoisie society. The form of the Deutsche developed in Vienna at the late 18th century. Over time, the dance became faster, especially during the turning figure, and it evolved into the Langaus and later into the Waltz during the Congress of Vienna. After 1770 in Vienna, the Strasburger figure and the circular procession of couples disappeared. Despite the rise of the Waltz, the Deutsche did not vanish. In cities on the periphery, including Ljubljana, its popularity persisted until the 1830s. The music of Deutsche has a cheerful character. It is consistently written in triple time. Most frequently, it consists of a set of 6 Deutsche with trios. Some earlier ones comprise 7, 8, 9, or even 12 of them. Many composers, amateur as well as professional ones, wrote Deutsche. Among them, an important trio stands out: Haydn, Mozart, and Schubert. The Laibacher Deutsche have been preserved exclusively in piano arrangements. Some of them have instruments indicated about the staff, mainly brass, trombones, trumpets, post horns. Their melodic, rhythmic, and formal structure clearly reflects the choreographic flow. However, it distinctly differs from the waltz of that time. Finally, let's listen to the first waltz from Quatre Waltz by Kaspar Mašek from 1829. Although titled as a waltz, in some places it musically resembles a Deutscher, especially where the papa accompaniment is interrupted by rhythmical vertical unisons. Thank you for your attention.
Oh, ganz herzlichen Dank. Thank you very much, Lidija. And so I don't know, Lidija, do you prefer the questions in English or is German okay?
Hello. It's better in English, but I will try to.
Okay.
So yeah.
So if it's okay for the others, please, if you have questions, write them in English, please. Are there any questions in the chat?
Yeah,
There is one,
Giles.
John, one question in the chat by Giles, who wrote, Dear Lidija, if I may, do you see any specific musical characteristics of the Laibacher Deutsche as compared to compositions elsewhere? Oder, Giles, willst du deine Frage selber stellen? Das ist dann...
Lidija, for alerting us to this interesting and important cluster of Deutsche in Ljubljana. So I heard you say you think that the name Deutsche persists at the center, that the name shifts more quickly in Vienna. Do you see in Vienna, it's difficult. There does not seem to be a firm musical characteristic to keep apart Deutsche, Walzer, Strasburger, Allemande. It's all a very complicated mix. And then also we have two step units. We have the step hop and we have the 3 steps in one bar. Do you see a characteristic? If I came to you with sheet music, could you recognize a Laibacher Deutscher?
I think not. I think this is the same like in Vienna or Grazer Deutscher. So I think this is good that Ljubljana is also in this part of the map, you know, it's the same region. And we have the same problem that we don't know how exactly we could do reconstruction to this dance now. And this is pity somehow, but yeah, this is still enigma.
I mean, it seems that the step hop, if we can trust the foreign sources, is maybe closer to the Deutscher Tanz. And but of course, all these types are very mixed in the period.
this hop is maybe some of the characteristic, you know, not just for Deutsche, but also for Element, because this is cheerful characteristic. So I think it is possible that this some of the important element that we could recognize Deutsche, like some characteristic of the Deutsche. But I'm sorry, I couldn't find some more details, and I was more thinking about the music because I'm musicologist and I'm working in this. I was working now 10 years in this beautiful library, so it was nice to find these examples and to do something in this research. Thank you for your question.
Do you find, one last quick question, I'm very thankful for your work on Faenza, your published article, which I used in my contribution in Rothenfels.
Really?
When I worked on his time in Lemberg. And have you seen what he wrote about the Deutsche in his short treatise? I think putting this music together with what later he was active in Ljubljana. So
Yes.
maybe you can have a look at my quotes. The treatise is not currently available online yet, but I've put all the relevant quotes in the article, so maybe it's a good connection.
Oh, this is very interesting. This is new for me. Thank you. Please send me some copy or
Giles, kannst du für die Teilnehmer, die das gerne auf Deutsch hören, deine Frage
ja, natürlich.
nochmal und das...
Ich kann auch übersetzen. Also meine Frage war, gibt es spezielle musikalische Charakteristika, ist es nicht vielmehr so wie in Wien oder auch in Graz, dass die Gattungsbezeichnungen durcheinander gehen, dass der gleiche Tanz, Allemande, Deutscher, Schleifer, Straßburger Walzer, dass dieses Wortfeld ziemlich durcheinander geht, und Lidija hat bestätigt, sie sieht auch keine klaren Unterscheidungen. Und dann ging es ein bisschen um die Schritte. Also einmal darum, gibt es, ob sie klare Zeichen sieht, ob es eher der Schritt-Hop-Schritt ist, der beschrieben wird im Zusammenhang mit dem deutschen Tanz, oder der Dreierschritt im Dreiertakt zum Drehen. Und da sieht sie auch keine klaren Antworten. Und zum Schluss habe ich auf meinen Beitrag zu Faenza in Lemberg hingewiesen, der sehr von Lidija Podlesnik, Tomašikovas Arbeiten zu Faenza in Ljubljana profitiert hat. Und er sagt auch etwas zum Deutschen, aber das lag ihr noch nicht vor. Und wenn jetzt noch irgendwelche anderen Fragen sind, wo es Sprachprobleme gibt, bin ich gerne zum Dolmetschen bereit.
Das ist lieb, Giles, danke. Ja, are there any questions or remarks? Irgendwelche Fragen noch oder irgendwelche Antworten? Anmerkungen, Entschuldigung.
Im Chat ist im Moment nichts weiter.
Markus?
Yeah, dear Lidija, great to see you again. Yes, I have a question about the way how, or whether the Laibacher Deutsche was spread all around Austria, or was it just a very local specialty?
Thank you, Marcos, for invitation for this conference. It's nice to see you too. I don't know exactly, you know, my research was, I don't know if the Laibacher Deutsche was known also in Graz or in Vienna. I think it was more local, because every city has their own Deutsche, you know. It was not need to have another from another city. And also, I think it's not a lot of differences between one or to another, from Laibacher or to Grazer or Vienna, Deutsche. But this theme is very important for the, Slovenia, because everything what was in German, it was not allowed to research in the past, and so still feel this fear about this kind of topics, and in my colleagues, Deutsche is the same like was, because they didn't want to think about it. Some Deutsche culture was very important in this 19th century, because these national ideas, it was very important to go forward and to forget what was in the past. So Deutsche was like, something that we are not, it's so not nice to talk about so much. But the teacher in the music schools asked me, what kind of dance it is, German dance. Nobody knows. So this was also the reason why I started to this research, 10 years already now. And I finished with help with Marko Mutnik. So we published article together, so it's even more there, some interesting information about the music, and maybe we put this link in the chat.
There is schon im Chat. It is already in the chat.
Oh, thank you very much. I see it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Giles, magst du das nochmal übersetzen? Was eben.
Ja, gerne. Also es gibt keine Anzeichen auf eine noch weitere Verbreitung, und Lidija ist sehr froh, das jetzt untersucht zu haben, weil es in Slowenien lange ein Tabu war, deutschsprachige lokale Quellen zu bearbeiten aufgrund des Nationalitätenkonflikts. Und deswegen hat sie auch sie wird aber gefragt zum Beispiel von Musikschullehrern nach lokalen Quellen, und hat zusammen mit Marko Motnik den geforscht, und den Link, der steht ja schon im Chat. Habe ich was vergessen?
Thank you. Perfect.
Ja.
Dankeschön, Giles.